They laughed when she pulled out the rifle. Old scope, worn stock, nothing like the high-tech gear their SEAL team used. Is that a museum piece? One sniper sneered. Does it even hold zero? Another mocked. She remained silent, setting up her position as they continued their jokes. Then came the call. Movement spotted. 2M out. Extreme wind conditions. Heat distortion making the shot nearly impossible. No one would attempt it except her. One breath, one squeeze, one confirmed hit. The laughter died instantly because what they didn't know was this. She'd made shots like that before. Just never where anyone lived to talk about it. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing for more tales of unsung heroes and unexpected expertise. The helicopter descended through thin mountain air, rotors kicking up swirls of dust that danced across the remote forward operating base in northern Afghanistan. As it touched down, the figure that emerged wasn't what anyone expected. Talia Blackwood stepped onto the gravel with a weathered rifle case slung over one shoulder and a small pack over the other. Mid-30s, unremarkable build. Her only distinctive feature was a network of faint scars across her left temple, disappearing into her hairline. Commander Ambrose Dellon greeted her with a curt nod. Glad you made it, though I wasn't sure you'd come after Kandahar. That's behind us now, she replied flatly. The assembled sniper team watched from the command tent with undisguised skepticism. Master Chief Riker Voss, the team's lead sniper, folded his arms across his chest. That's our secret weapon, he muttered. Looks like my high school librarian. Norse, his regular spotter, snorted. Maybe she's bringing us books on how to shoot better. Talia heard them. She was meant to, but continued methodically unpacking her gear. The rifle she removed from its case looked nothing like the sleek tactical weapons the team carried. The stock was worn smooth from use. The barrel lacked the distinctive fluting of modern precision rifles, and the scope looked like something from another era. Riker couldn't contain himself. He approached, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That's interesting equipment you've brought, he said, examining the rifle with theatrical politeness. Macmillan TAC-50. Pretty old school. That scope looks like something my grandfather would have used in Vietnam. Talia continued her methodical setup, checking each component with practiced hands. Caspian, the team's technology specialist, joined them. Does that thing even hold zero in these conditions? Our Mars boys are running the new Barrett Mr. ad with digital wind mapping. I mean, at least tell me you've got the ballistic calculator app. She answered by pulling out a leather-bound notebook, its pages dog-eared and filled with handwritten tables. The laughter that followed made Commander Devlin cease. He shot his team a warning look before pulling Talia aside. These men are the best we have, he said quietly. But they don't know what I know. Are you sure about this? After Kandahar. I'm here, aren't I? She cut him off, her voice low but firm. Let's focus on the mission. The briefing was tense. Intelligence had located a high-value target, a bomb maker responsible for dozens of American casualties, but their window was closing. He would be in the open for only minutes before disappearing into Pakistan's tribal regions. The shot will be approximately 2,600 m, Dellon explained, pointing to the map. Wind conditions are challenging. Impossible, you mean? Riker interrupted. With respect, sir, at that distance, with these crosswinds and the heat distortion in the valley, we're talking lottery odds. Devlin's eyes shifted to Talia. That's why she's here. The silence that followed was broken only by Norse's incredulous laugh. You're joking, right? With that museum piece. Talia closed her notebook and stood. We should move to position. First light gives us the best visibility before the heat builds. As the team gathered their gear, Caspian sidled up to Riker. $10 says she misses by 100 meters. You're on, Riker replied. I say 200. The rocky outcrop provided a perfect vantage point of the compound 20,600 m away. The team set up their position as dawn broke over the mountains, painting the landscape in gold and lengthening shadows. Talia chose her spot away from the others, arranging her equipment with deliberate precision. Handmade tools, her worn notebook, and unusual ammunition with no manufacturer markings. Norse made a show of refusing to spot for her. No offense, but I work with Riker. We've been a team for 4 years. None taken, Talia replied, the first words most of them had heard her speak. Caspian was busy setting up his advanced targeting system, a tablet-like device that calculated wind speed, temperature, humidity, and a dozen other variables affecting ballistics. Check this out, he called to the others, proudly displaying the screen. AI-assisted targeting, factors in bullet drop, spin drift, Coriolis effect, everything. Talia continued her preparations, making notes in her book using symbols that looked nothing like standard ballistic calculations. Riker noticed. What kind of system is that? Mine, she answered simply. The radio crackled to life. Eliagi, this is Nest. Target is expected on site within the hour. Confirm you are in position. Confirmed, Devlin responded. All elements ready. Riker settled behind his rifle, a state-of-the-art system with carbon fiber stock, fluted barrel, and digital scope displaying environmental readings directly in the viewfinder. Nice setup, Talia commented, the first voluntary word she'd offered. Surprised, Riker nodded. Yeah, $35,000 of precision engineering. What's your glass? Modified Undert snorted. I bet you did. The minute stretched into an hour, the sun climbed higher, and with it came the heat distortion that made distant targeting exponentially more difficult. Wind gusted unpredictably through the valley, sending dust devils spiraling across the barren ground. Movement, Caspian called suddenly, eyes fixed on his thermal imaging display. Southeast corner of the compound. All eyes turned to their scopes. A figure emerged briefly, then disappeared back into shadow. That's him, Devlin confirmed. Intelligence confirms target signature. Riker settled into position, adjusting his scope. Norse called out wind readings. 1823 mpr. Variable direction. Barometric pressure dropping. Caspian glanced at his targeting system and frowned. 91% probability of miss flashed across his screen. The figure appeared again, moving quickly between buildings. Take the shot, Devlin ordered. Riker hesitated, his finger hovering over the trigger. Sir, with these conditions, I don't have a clean solution. The target was moving toward a waiting vehicle. Seconds remained before the opportunity would be lost. Commander Devlin's voice crackled over the radio. We're losing our window. Does anyone have the shot? Talia quietly moved into position, her movements fluid and practiced. I have it, she said simply. The team erupted in laughter until Devlin silenced them with a sharp command. Let her try. Complete silence fell across the outcrop as Talia settled behind her rifle. Without a spotter, she consulted her notebook, made a series of adjustments to her scope, and then closed her eyes briefly as if centering herself. She took one deep breath, exhaled halfway, and squeezed the trigger. The report echoed across the valley. For 2 full seconds, nothing happened. Then, through their scopes, they watched as the distant figure suddenly dropped. The radio crackled. Target eliminated. Clean shot. Norse lowered his spotting scope, his face pale. That's not possible. Caspian stared at his equipment in disbelief. My system calculated a 91% probability of miss. The variables were off the charts. Riker said nothing. He simply looked at Talia with new eyes, then carefully approached her position and examined her rifle more closely. His trained eye now caught details he'd missed before. Custom trigger work. A hand-lapped barrel. Proprietary glass in the scope with etched markings he didn't recognize. What is this? He asked, pointing to strange markings on the barrel. Before she could answer, a new voice crackled over a different frequency on Talia's personal radio. Blackwood, confirm status. The team exchanged glances. Blackwood wasn't the call sign they'd been given for her. Talia keyed her radio. Stillwater asset confirms package delivered. Site secure. No complications. The change in Commander Devlin's demeanor was immediate and startling. The casual authority he'd maintained with the team vanished, replaced by something close to difference. Sir, Riker questioned, confused by the shift. Devlin looked at Talia, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Gentlemen, the commander said, you've been shooting with the legendary ghost of Kandahar. The team stared at her in disbelief. That's Norse began. That's not possible. The ghost was responsible for the longest confirmed kill in Afghanistan, plus those impossible shots in Mosul and other places. 12 confirmed kills, Devlin continued. All beyond standard operational parameters. All with the same rifle you just mocked as a museum piece. Caspian shook his head. But those were attributed to different snipers from different units. There's no way. There's every way. Talia interrupted calmly, beginning to break down her rifle. When operations don't officially exist, neither do their snipers. Images flashed through her mind. A moonless night in Kandahar province. The shot that changed the tide of a classified operation. The aftermath that had cost lives and forced her into the shadows. The rifle in her hands wasn't outdated. It was purpose-built with classified technology, deliberately disguised to look ordinary, untraceable, forgettable. Your rifle, Riker said, understanding dawning. It looks ordinary on purpose. Talia nodded. The best weapons are the ones no one remembers seeing. The radio crackled again. Eagle Eye, we have new intelligence. 3 additional HVTs have arrived at the secondary location, requesting overwatch and potential engagement. Devlin looked to his team, then to Talia. This wasn't part of the brief. These conditions are getting worse, Riker finished, glancing at the valley where heat distortion was now visibly warping the air. I don't think even she can make those shots. Talia studied the new coordinates, consulting her notebook. I can get the first one, maybe the second, but the third, she looked at Riker. That one's yours. Mine? He laughed humorlessly. I just watched you make a shot I wouldn't attempt on my best day. Because you don't know what I know, she replied yet. Norse approached first, swallowing his pride. Would you show me your calculations? Talia hesitated, then nodded. She opened her leather-bound book to reveal pages of complex formulas and observations, ballistics calculations that went far beyond standard military training. These account for atmospheric density changes throughout the bullet's flight path, she explained, pointing to one section. And these compensate for micro-terrain effects on wind patterns. Riker joined them, struggling visibly with his pride, but eventually acknowledging. I've been trying to make shots like that for 3 years. Never got past 2,100 meters with any consistency. It's not about the equipment, Talia said, running her hand along her rifle's worn stock. It's about understanding that at extreme distances, you're not just shooting through air, you're navigating a river of constantly changing conditions. Caspian examined her scope with newfound respect. These markings, their custom calibrations, hand-etched after thousands of test shots, she confirmed. No app can replace experience. As the team prepared for the next engagement, the dynamic had transformed. Where there had been mockery, now there was attention. Where there had been dismissal, now there was respect. First target is 2,430 m, Devlin announced. Similar wind conditions, possibly worse. Talia set up, took the shot, and again the radio confirmed. Target down for the second target at 2,500 m. She talked through her process. Norse spotted for her now, hanging on every word as she explained subtle adjustments. Target eliminated, came the confirmation. Then came the third target, the most difficult position, partially obscured at a slight upward angle that complicated ballistics further. This one's yours, Talia said to Riker. I can't make that shot, he admitted. Not with what you knew an hour ago, she agreed. But now, she positioned herself as his spotter, guiding him through her methodology. She showed him how to read the subtle signs in the environment that no technology could fully capture. The way distant dust moved differently at various elevations, revealing wind layers invisible to instruments. Trust your eye more than your gear, she instructed. Feel the shot before you take it. Riker absorbed everything, made his adjustments, and finally squeezed the trigger. 3 seconds passed. Target down, the radio confirmed. Clean shot. The look on Riker's face was beyond pride. It was revelation. That's the furthest I've ever connected. Talia nodded. The first of many. As the team packed up their gear, the questions began flowing. Freely, how did you become the ghost? Caspian asked, no longer hiding his admiration. Talia continued disassembling her rifle, methodical as always. I didn't set out to become anything. I was a competitive shooter, recruited for my accuracy. Then came specialized training, classified operations. The legend grew on its own. But why the secrecy? Norse pressed. With skills like that, you could have written your ticket anywhere. A shadow crossed her face. Legends are useful tools. The ghost was more valuable as a rumor than a person. Kandahar, Riker said quietly. What happened there? Talia's hands stilled momentarily on her rifle. Commander Devlin shot Riker a warning look, but Talia gave a slight nod. It was supposed to be a simple operation. Take out a high V-value target during a gathering of insurgent leaders. Clean, precise, one shot. But intelligence was flawed. She closed her rifle case with deliberate care. The building was full of civilians. I saw it through my scope. Tried to abort, but communications had been compromised. Someone else gave the fire order, claiming it came from me. The team fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the mountain air. 14 civilians died that day. The official report blamed faulty intelligence, but I knew the truth. Someone wanted that bloodshed. When I started asking questions, I became a liability. So, they buried you, Caspian concluded. Made the ghost disappear. Until now, she confirmed. This mission is my first official deployment in 3 years. Why come back? Norse asked. Talia looked toward the distant compound where their targets had been neutralized. Because sometimes the most dangerous place to hide is in plain sight. The helicopter arrived to extract them as dusk settled over the mountains. The ride back to base was quiet, each team member processing the day's revelations in their own way. Once they landed, Devlin pulled Talia aside. You did well today. Not just the shots, but with the team. They're good men, she acknowledged. Skilled. Which is why I need to tell you something. Devlin lowered his voice further. This mission wasn't just about eliminating targets. It was about evaluating you. Talia's expression didn't change, but her posture stiffened slightly. For what purpose? The program is being reactivated. New assets, new targets, same deniability. They want you to train the next generation of ghosts. She shook her head. I didn't come back for that. Then why did you come back? He challenged. Before she could answer, Riker approached, his normally confident demeanor replaced with uncharacteristic hesitation. Commander, sorry to interrupt. I need a word with Blackwood. Devlin nodded and stepped away, leaving them alone. That shot today, Riker began. I've been reviewing it in my head. There's something I can't figure out. You adjusted for a crosswind that wasn't there yet. Talia met his gaze steadily. What makes you say that? Norse's reading showed the wind shifting 3 seconds after your adjustment, but a second before impact, almost like you knew it was coming. Good observation, she said quietly. So how did you know? She gestured toward the mountains surrounding the base. See that ridgeline? The way the clouds move over it creates predictable air currents in the valley. I've been in this region before. Some patterns don't change. Riker processed this. You're saying the key to impossible shots is reading the landscape itself. The landscape, the weather, the time of day, the season. Everything matters at extreme distances. He nodded slowly. I want to learn. Not just the techniques, but the thinking behind them. Why? She asked simply. Because today I realized that everything I thought I knew about being the best was wrong, and I don't want to stay wrong. For the first time since her arrival, Talia smiled. A small, genuine expression that transformed her face. We start at dawn tomorrow. Bring your rifle and leave your ego at the barracks. The next morning, found them on a different ridge. The rising sun painting the landscape in gold and purple shadows. Riker arrived to find Talia already there, her rifle assembled but not deployed, her notebook open on a flat rock. First lesson, she said without preamble. Put away your scope. Tell me what you see. Riker surveyed the valley before them. Mountains, a few structures, some vehicles moving on the road to the east. Look deeper, she instructed. What's the valley telling you? He focused, trying to see. Beyond the obvious. The dust near that ridge is moving differently than elsewhere. And there's a heat signature rising from that cluster of buildings. Good. Now feel the air on your face. What direction is it moving? Riker closed his eyes, concentrating on the subtle touch of air against his skin. From the west, but it's swirling. That's because the mountain creates a vortex effect as the day warms. By midday, that swirl will become a thermal updraft that can push a bullet off course by meters. For the next several hours, they simply observed Talia teaching him to read the environment in ways his high-tech equipment never could. Only after the sun was high did she finally allow him to assemble his rifle. Now take a shot at the practice target. It's set at 1,800 m. Riker settled behind his scope, made his calculations, and fired. The shot landed 6 in right of center. Not bad, Talia acknowledged. Now put your rifle down and tell me why you missed. He frowned. Wind shift at the last second? No, you didn't account for the fact that the target sits in shadow. The air temperature there is 3 degrees cooler than the air your bullet traveled through to get there. Small difference, big impact. As the days passed, Riker's understanding deepened. Each morning, more members of the team joined their sessions. Even Caspian began leaving his targeting system behind, learning to trust his own observations over technology. A week into the training, Commander Devlin arrived at their practice session, his expression grave. We've got new intelligence, he announced. The bomb maker's network is still operational. We've identified the new leader, but he's holed up in a compound deep in the mountains. The approach is heavily watched, and conventional forces can't get close enough. What's the distance? Talia asked. Just over 3 kilometers. A low whistle escaped Norse's lips. That's beyond even your range, isn't it? Under normal circumstances, yes, she admitted. But there's another factor at play. She turned to Devlin. This isn't a standard elimination mission, is it? The commander hesitated, then shook his head. No, we need to make a statement. The shot needs to be witnessed. Needs to send a message that no distance provides safety. Riker looked between them. You're asking for an impossible shot that needs to be both successful and visible. That's suicide for the shooter. Not if there's more than one shooter, Talia said quietly. Understanding dawned on Riker's face. A synchronized shot. Multiple rifles, same target fired simultaneously. Talia nodded. Exactly. One impossible shot from multiple positions. The probability increases dramatically. But the coordination would have to be perfect, Nord. Wind conditions vary by location. Each shooter would need different adjustments. That's why I've been training you, Talia said simply. We don't need identical calculations. We need shooters who understand the variables at their specific locations. Devlin looked at the team, then back to Talia. Can it be done? She surveyed the men she'd been training. Riker with his newfound humility. Norse with his keen observational skills. Caspian with his analytical mind now balanced with practical knowledge. Yes, she said finally, but we'll need 3 days to prepare. The 3 days of preparation were a study in precision and coordination. Talia divided the team into 3 units, each positioned at different vantage points surrounding the target compound. Riker would take the western approach, Norse the southern ridge, and Talia herself would occupy the most difficult position to the east. Caspian would coordinate communications and provide real-time weather data from a central location. Each morning began before dawn. The team studying the terrain, mapping every ridge and depression that might affect wind patterns. Afternoons were spent making minute adjustments to their rifles, testing custom-loaded ammunition that Talia had brought specifically for this operation. The key is synchronization, she explained during their final briefing. We're not taking 3 shots at the same target. We're taking 1 shot from 3 positions. What if one of us misses? Norse asked the question they'd all been thinking. We won't, Talia replied with quiet confidence. But if something goes wrong, we abort and reassess. No second attempts. That's when mistakes happen. On the morning of the operation, they moved into position under cover of darkness. The target compound sat, nestled in a valley surrounded by steep mountains, a location chosen specifically for its inaccessibility. Intelligence had confirmed that the new bomb maker would be conducting an outdoor demonstration of his latest device at precisely 0900 hours. Riker settled into his hide 3,200 m from the target. Through his scope, the compound appeared as little more than a collection of tiny structures, heat distortion already beginning to warp the air despite the early hour. Eagle 1 in position, he radioed, using their new call signs. Eagle 2 ready, came Norse's response from the southern ridge. Eagle 3 set. Talia confirmed from her position to the east. Command acknowledges, Caspian replied from his coordination post. Weather data shows light variable winds, barometric pressure 29.92 and stable. Target expected on site in 30 minutes. Riker focused on his breathing, slowing his heart rate as Talia had taught him. He reviewed her lessons in his mind. Raid the landscape. Feel the air. Trust your observations over your instruments. Movement at the compound. Norse reported multiple individuals gathering in the central courtyard. Through his scope, Riker could see figures assembling around what appeared to be a demonstration table. He made minor adjustments to his scope, accounting for the specific conditions at his location. Target identified, Caspian announced, wearing black vest and red head covering, currently moving toward the center of the gathering. Riker found the figure, making his final calculations. The distance was extreme, beyond anything he would have considered possible before meeting Talia. Yet now, with her training, he felt a new confidence. Eagle 1 has visual and solution, he confirmed. Eagle 2 has visual and solution, Norse added. A moment's pause then. Eagle 3 has visual and solution, Talia concluded. Caspian's voice came through their earpieces. On my mark, synchronized fire in 30 seconds. 29:28. As the countdown continued, Riker focused on his breathing, on the feel of the rifle against his shoulder, on the subtle pressure of his finger against the trigger. He thought back to his first encounter with Talia, how he had dismissed her and her museum piece rifle. The memory brought not embarrassment, but clarity. True mastery wasn't about equipment or technology. It was about understanding. 3-2-1 mark. Riker squeezed the trigger at the precise moment, feeling the rifle's recoil as 3 shots rang out across the mountains, so perfectly synchronized, they sounded as one. For seconds passed, the bullets traveling their extreme distance. Through his scope, Riker watched as the target suddenly dropped. The surrounding figures scattered in panic, unable to determine where the shot had come from. Target down, Caspian confirmed. Clean hit. Extract immediately. The team quickly broke down their positions, erasing all evidence of their presence. Within minutes, they were moving along their predetermined extraction routes, converging at a rendezvous 0.5 kilometers away, where a helicopter would retrieve them. Riker was the first to arrive, followed shortly by Norse. They waited in tense silence for Talia, scanning the ridge line where she should appear. She should be here by now, Norse muttered after 15 minutes had passed. The radio crackled to life. Eagle 3 encountering resistance. Taking alternate route. Proceed with extraction. Riker grabbed the radio. Negative. We wait. Negative. Came Talia's firm response. Complete the mission. That's an order. The sound of distant gunfire punctuated her words. Devlin's voice cut in. Extraction helicopter inbound. 2 minutes. Riker exchanged glances with Norse, a silent communication passing between them. Without a word, both men shouldered their packs and began moving toward Talia's last known position. Eagle 1 and 2 returned to extraction point immediately, Devlin commanded. With respect, sir. No, Riker responded. We don't leave our own behind. They moved quickly across the rocky terrain, using the skills Talia had taught them to read the landscape and avoid detection. The gunfire had ceased, which worried Riker more than its continuation would have. They crested a ridge and spotted movement in a small ravine below. Talia was pinned down behind a boulder, 3 armed men advancing on her position. Her rifle was nowhere to be seen, and she was returning fire with only her sidearm. Riker and Norse dropped to prone positions, their rifles finding targets instantly. 2 quick shots dispatched 2 of the attackers. The third spun around trying to locate the new threat, giving Talia the opportunity to neutralize him with her handgun. They scrambled down to her position. A wound on her left arm was bleeding steadily, but she waved off their concern. I told you to extract, she said, though the relief in her eyes betrayed her words. We don't abandon our spotter, Norse replied simply. The extraction helicopter found them 15 minutes later, lifting them away from the mountains just as reinforcements began arriving at the compound in the valley below. Back at base, the mission was declared a complete success. The synchronized shot from an impossible distance had not only eliminated a high V-value target, but had sent a powerful message to the entire network. No location was beyond reach. No distance provided safety. In the medical tent, Talia sat patiently as a medic cleaned and bandaged her arm wound. Riker and Norse waited nearby, still processing the day's events. Why did you come back for me? She asked finally. It violated protocol. Norse looked at Riker, letting him answer. Because that's what a team does, Riker said simply. And somewhere in the past week, we became a team. Talia studied them both, then nodded slowly. Yes, we did. Commander Devlin entered the tent, his expression unreadable. The shot is already becoming legend. 3 kilometers, synchronized fire, 1 hit. Intelligence reports the entire network is in disarray. Mission accomplished, Talia said. Not quite, Devlin replied. There's still the matter of your original assignment. Riker frowned. Original assignment? Devlin glanced at Talia, who sighed and nodded her permission. Blackwood wasn't sent here just for this operation, Devlin explained. She was sent to evaluate this team's potential for a new program. The Ghost program needs to be reactivated, but differently this time. Not lone operators, but teams, specialists who can accomplish the impossible together. And what's your assessment? Norse asked Talia directly. She looked at each of them in turn. That you're ready if you want it. Want what exactly? Riker asked. To become ghosts, she replied. To take on missions that don't officially exist. to make shots that aren't officially possible, and to disappear from the records, Caspian added, understanding dawning on his face as he joined them. Like you did after Kandahar. Talia nodded. It's not a decision to take lightly. There's no glory, no recognition. The work happens in shadows. But it matters, Riker said. More than most will ever know, she confirmed. 6 months later, a training facility nestled in the Nevada mountains received 4 new instructors. Their arrival was not announced. Their names did not appear on any official roster, but their impact was immediately felt. The legend of the ghost of Kandahar evolved into whispers about the ghost team, though such rumors were officially dismissed as exaggeration and fantasy. Yet in certain circles, the possibility of synchronized sniper fire from impossible distances became a very real concern. In a glass case near the entrance to the facility's main building sat Talia's rifle, the museum piece that had been so roundly mocked. Next to it hung a simple plaque that bore no name, only an inscription. It's not the weapon that makes the impossible possible. New recruits arrived regularly, each selected for different skills and attributes. Some came with advanced weapons and technology, others with more traditional equipment. All were initially skeptical of the training methods, the emphasis on reading landscapes instead of relying on technology until they witnessed their first demonstration. A new female recruit arrived one afternoon carrying an unusual rifle that didn't match standard issue. The other trainees eyed her equipment with visible skepticism, exchanging knowing glances and barely suppressed smirks. Norse and Riker, now senior instructors, watched the scene unfold with a sense of déjà vu. Before anyone could make a comment, Norse stepped forward. "Let's see what you can do," he said simply. From a distance, Talia observed the interaction, a small smile forming as she remembered her own first day. The cycle was continuing, expertise hidden in plain sight, waiting to be recognized by those wise enough to look past appearances. She turned and walked toward the range where her next class waited, thinking, sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't the one you can see coming. The Ghost program continued to evolve, its operatives appearing briefly in conflict zones around the world before vanishing again. They left behind only questions and impossibly precise results. No official records acknowledged their existence. No medals recognized their achievements, but their impact was felt across continents. And occasionally, when elite military snipers gathered to swap stories, someone would mention an old rifle with a worn stock and outdated scope, and how it had made the most impossible shot they'd ever witnessed. Most dismissed such tales as exaggeration or myth. But a few, those who had learned to look deeper, would fall silent, knowing that some legends walk among us, hidden in plain sight, never seeking recognition, but deserving it more than anyone.